When Sony had the opportunity to release Sly 2 on its anniversary this year, but didn't, that little hope in me had fizzled out. But like a candle, it can be reignited once again, and PlayStation has done just that. Sly 2 Band of Thieves as well as Sly 3 Honor Among Thieves has just dropped. So did everything else that was in my hand. This is big news for the Sly community. Before we get into the actual games, I just want to put our hype meter in check. By all means, be hype with me that we have the rest of the trilogy here on PlayStation 5. However, Sony has been doing just a little more with the IP than they had before. We got a Funko Pop a few years ago, then we got Sly 1 earlier this year. A new U2s had recently dropped that surprisingly looks really cool. And now, Sly 2 and 3 are available to the masses. When you say it all together like that, it sounds like we are feasting. To any other franchise, this is just a Tuesday. I just don't want anyone getting their hopes up thinking something big is coming to then be disappointed for the next few years. You're not wrong to be hyped, but we'll talk about that later on. This intro is a bit too long, so without any more delay, let's see what PlayStation has cooked up for us. I want to start off by talking about purchasing these games, as many were still confused on my last video. Sony themselves advertised that the Sly PS2 games are only obtainable via buying or having PlayStation Plus Premium. That is not true, and they are sabotaging themselves by doing that. You can, in fact, buy all three individually for $9.99 USD each. I also want to point out the fact that when pressing purchase, you will be prompted to buy PlayStation Plus. Do not be fooled. You can push the skip button and proceed to purchase the games. This is kinda scummy on PlayStation's part for trying to trick customers into buying PS Plus. Now we can get into the actual games. I've played a little over an hour each, which gave me enough time to complete the first chapter for both titles. Before anyone starts typing in the comments that it isn't enough time to do a review, you are completely right. My counter argument is that Sly 1 had got many updates over the course of its release for PS5. In fact, it even got a new update the day of or the day before Sly 2 and 3 released. If I remember correctly, the YouTube short I made talking about a trophy glitch has since been fixed for a while now. I'm pretty positive the audio bug got fixed as well, so any issues you may come across now will most likely be fixed over time. While playing both games, I didn't notice any unusual activities during gameplay. Something I did see were some weird art defects in the Sly 3 menus alongside some really blurry looking animated cutscenes. I'm willing to guess that they've always been blurry and that the cutscenes were not made for high-res screens. I really don't know on that front, but if it's fixable, I do hope it gets addressed. I can't say much on the PS4 version of the game since mine is very faulty. Nonetheless, I assume most if not all features are the same for both versions. Something to note, however, the load times on PS5 is much quicker, which is probably due to it having an SSD. The Sly games aren't known for long loading screens, though it definitely feels a lot faster than what I remember on PS2. Like the first Sly game, these two are being run by Sony's own PlayStation emulator, adding special features like having different save states and minor visual settings. The rewind feature also makes a return. Whether it's considered cheating or not, it's a good tool for speedrunners to perfect their skills. I do wish there was a 16:9 aspect ratio setting, although it would just stretch the image. Playing these games on a big TV would be pretty beneficial as opposed to a computer monitor. Other than that, I don't have any complaints. Well, except the fact the clip art for both games are swapped. It's not a big deal, but it really is a tad annoying. I'm sure that'll get fixed pretty soon anyway. When it comes to trophies, there aren't more for these versions compared to the PS3 collection. PS5 Sly 2 has one less, while PS5 Sly 3 has one more than their respective counterparts. From what I've read, they aren't the same and even seem a bit more challenging than the original PS3 version. That's pretty much it when it comes to reviewing the new re-releases. They are a more accessible way to play this iconic trilogy while being close to the original as possible. The neat extra features are certainly appreciated, yet it could get better over time. There will always be those that say the PCSX emulator can upscale and make it 4K easily, and there are also those that will continue to champion the PS3 collection for whatever reason. Both have their own valid arguments, but none can compete with the fact PlayStation doesn't get any revenue from either of those. That matters because people like that are partially why the Sly franchise is currently dead or in limbo. Supporting these PS5 versions will send a louder and clearer message to the guys in charge. I'd argue these re-releases are a test. All companies test the waters in some way before they dump time and money into something much bigger. It's even more difficult for them to revive a franchise that's been dormant as long as Sly has. If you don't believe me, the head of Sony back in September stated, and I quote, "Whether it's for games, films, or anime, the company doesn't have enough IP that it fostered from the beginning," end quote. Now you and I both know that's a load of hoopla. Even so, I can kinda see why he thinks this way. To use the Sly franchise as an example, Sly 4 didn't do well when it was released. The game ended in a cliffhanger that was going to be resolved with a planned paid DLC. Sony pulled the plug themselves because it didn't seem worth the trouble. Therefore, the Sly IP isn't a franchise that matters to them because it didn't make them enough money. So to them, they don't have enough franchises that can create good revenue. As brutal as that sounds, it's easy to forget where the passion lies when it comes to video games. Unless it's an indie dev, these games are only dollar signs to the parent company in charge. The developers that originally created the game will be the only ones that have insane passion for the series. Sucker Punch has since moved on from their first success to make more IPs with zero plans on coming back. I could go on, but that's the situation that we are in as Sly fans. The harsh reality is that it'll take another company to continue the franchise if Sony deems it so. It's not all doom and gloom though. With enough purchases and good ratings for these two games, there still is a chance at a new game from the series, or at least Sony doing more with the IP than just cool merchandise. Waiting around for a new Sly game won't get you anything. If you really want a new Sly Cooper game, buying these is the only way you're going to get that. We did it with Sly 1, and we could do it again with these two new releases. With that being said, enjoy the rest of your day, and have a Merry Christmas.
Chris is